Alright, here's a slightly different video. I've had figures before I started making unboxing videos, and I decided to display a few of them because these are some of my favorites, and I feel like they need some attention. The first one is a personal favorite, that is the colonial assassin, Connor, the hunter statue from the video game Assassin's Creed 3. The height of the figure is roughly 9.5 inches. Unfortunately, I don't remember the prices for any of these figures, but this one is a personal favorite because Assassin's Creed 3 was actually my first AC game that I played and what got me into the series. I know many aren't a fan of Connor because of his impatient and reckless actions, while also having a cold demeanor that can make him feel lifeless, along with his naive outlook in his early years can be frustrating. But he's always been one of my favorite assassins, and I've enjoyed his journey in the game. I do wish we got another game with Connor in his later years, similar to what they did with Ezio, but I am content with what we got in AC3. Also, love Connor's outfit, along with his axe having the assassin logo on it, and my favorite part of the figure is probably the pose itself. It's always cool to see someone wield a bow in fiction. Love how the tree is sculpted and painted, looks amazing. The axe or tomahawk on the side is such a cool detail. Another cool detail, the gun and the knives and the holsters are removable. It's a nice addition. I have considered getting other assassin figures, but there's not a lot of them out there, and I don't think I like any of them enough to buy a figure of them, possibly other than Edward or Ezio. The next figure is from Fire Force, that is Tamaki Kotatsu, made by Kotobukiya. Love the simple pose. I've always thought the outfits of Fire Force looked cool, especially for Tamaki for obvious reasons. The figure is roughly below 8 inches in height. I do like Tamaki, other than for the fan service, and her powers being that of a fire cat is a cool visual in the anime. And I do have to mention it just to glaze my goat. I love Tamaki's VA, Aoyuki, and her performance. It's always a pleasure to hear her voice anyone. I don't think I ever had a problem with fan service in anime. It can happen on rare occasions, but it's something I can appreciate as a viewer. However, one of those rare moments did happen with Tamaki, and it was during Shinra's fight against Reka. So I gotta give props to Fire Force for making me, a fan service enjoyer, question why did it do that in an intense moment, though I did find it hilarious. And even with that, I do enjoy any Tamaki moments in the series. I do love Fire Force as a series, and I wish there were more figures for it. I would have loved more for Tamaki, and some Iris and Maki figures. I know this figure of Tamaki had a version of her that comes with her Fire Cat accessories, but I didn't know that at the time, and I got the version without the extra accessories, which I did frustrating because I would have loved the other version. I even considered buying another one with it, but I don't think I like Tamaki enough for that. But the fact that I even considered getting one kind of shows how much I did like this figure. Here's a more random one since it isn't anime or manga related. That is Agent Venom from the Marvel Comics, made by Diamond Select Toys. The figure is roughly 10 inches in height. This is one of the few figures I didn't get myself, but it was gifted to me by my brother, which I really appreciate because this is something I probably never would have gotten for myself since I kind of only focus on anime related figures, but it's because of that reason is why this one is one of my favorites. It kind of stands out to what I got in my collection. And the gun, along with the guns on the thighs, are one of my favorite parts of this figure. Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes, and even though I've yet to get a proper figure of Spider-Man, I'm glad to have something close to it. I don't know much about Agent Venom other than I believe he's Flash Thompson, the character who bullied Peter Parker, and becomes a host for the Venom symbiote. His story does sound interesting, but I don't know if I'll ever read more into a story, unless it ever gets adapted into a film. But I do love his appearance. The protective gear and gun is such a cool look for Venom, in my opinion. And for the final one, here's one of my favorite figures just from the design alone, since I don't know much about the character. That is Jean Bart in the dress version from Azur Lane, made by Wings Inc. The height from the base to the top of the headpiece is roughly below 9.5 inches. And from the base to the top of the back piece, it's roughly 10 inches in height. This is easily one of my favorite figures I've bought, and it's one of the few reasons I wanted to start making unboxing videos, because a figure this amazing had to be displayed. Love the casual posture for the character, has a nice elegant look with the dress, but also some fan service. Love how the wine glasses are hanging on the back piece. But it's also a small negative on the figure because these pieces had to be put on manually, and nothing keeps them from falling off if the figure is moved. I even lost some of the pieces for a while, but luckily I managed to find them eventually when I swept my room, and I decided to super glue them on the back piece. Now they won't ever fall again. And one of my favorite parts of the figure is the gun turrets on the table. It's a nice contrast to the character. And probably my favorite part is the outfit itself. It's nicely detailed and the color is a nice complement to everything around the figure. I also adore the face expression, although not very expressive, but it works for the pose of this figure. Even the base is nice. It's a translucent or reddish brown color with the character's name on it. And I also want to mention, love how the hair is sculpted, always a fan of ponytails myself. This would easily rank high in my tier of figures. That's pretty much it for the showcase. I do have other figures that I've never made videos for, so I am considering doing another one of these in the future someday. That'll be all for the showcases, and hope you enjoyed. See ya.
ママ、私今日はもう帰らないから。言えるわけないじゃん。で今中華発動じゃん。でも機敏に。残り10秒。私はもう逃げない。押し通る。ありがとうございます。
そこまで向けろとは言ってねえ。